In order to get sales, you need to be able to bring traffic to your Shopify store. And currently, the best way to do this is via Facebook ads. But Facebook ads can be quite intimidating, complicated, and overwhelming for beginners. So welcome to the second best Facebook ads tutorial video on YouTube. It's gonna be hard to compete with Verum Ecom's Facebook video, so we're happy to take second place in this case. So in this video, we're gonna be covering the entire Facebook ads strategy. So I'm gonna be going over my personal Facebook ad launch strategy, the importance of actually constant testing and things to look out for when actually testing, when to scale and also kill ads, how to scale ads, and also lookalike audiences. Hopefully the video is here just in time to hit things off right for Q4, because it's going to be important to learn Facebook ads as soon as possible if you have no prior experience just yet, or you haven't tried it yet. And I see a lot of people getting Facebook ads wrong, especially the testing phase. So this is why I created this video for you guys. So stick tight and start learning, and let's get right into it. Before we get into the actual testing strategy, we need to clarify and discuss a few things, mainly the actual structure of Facebook ads. In general, we have 3 stages and 3 levels within Facebook ads. On the top, we have the campaign level, then we have the ad set level, and on the bottom, we have the ads level. So let's talk about what's important for each individual step and what we can choose and decide there. We start off with the campaign level. On the campaign level, we decide what the objective of the ads are actually going to be. So what do we want these ads to do for us? Whether we want to run traffic to our site, get additional engagement, page likes, or actual conversions, purchases, add to carts, you name it. This is all decided on the actual campaign level. But for e-commerce, or at least dropshipping stores, we're almost always going to go with conversions. Now moving one step further to the actual ad sets, on the ad set level, we can decide a bunch of different things. We mainly decide who we actually want to show these ads to, whether it's the location, the age, the gender, or the language, just to name a few examples. We also choose the actual conversion event. So what do we want to optimize for? Is it the add to cart? Is it view content? Is it page view? Is it initiate checkout? Or actually purchases, which is going to be the one that we're usually going to be optimizing for. We can also decide where we actually want to present our Facebook ads. So whether it's on the Facebook feed, Instagram stories, audience network, messaging, that's where we all decide that as well. And we can also change up a few additional things on the ad set level, which we'll get into shortly. And one step further, we have the actual ads, also referred as ad creatives or just creatives. This is actually where we decide and set up what we actually want to present to our customers. So here we set up the ad copy, the destination link, the actual images, the thumbnail of your video ad, choose whether you want to present an image, carousel, or video ad. So basically, we decide what we want the customer to see on the actual ads level. Got it? By the way, if any single part or stage within this video is unclear, feel free to ask within the comment section down below, or actually join the private Facebook group. It's 100% free if you have any other inquiries or something wasn't clear within the video. I'd be glad to help you out. Or just pause the video and rewatch it. And also, one more thing before we actually talk about my actual launch strategy, we have to decide where we spend our budget on. So are we going to be running ABOs or CBOs? So for those of you that don't know, CBO stands for campaign budget optimization. So with CBOs, you actually choose the budget on the campaign level. So you practically give the freedom to Facebook to allocate the budget that you've given this campaign amongst all the different ads and also ad sets within the CBO campaign. So let's say, for example, you have 5 ad sets within your CBO campaign and you give the CBO $100 to spend. Facebook will now allocate the budget amongst your different ad sets and ads within the CBO campaign. So for example, ad set 1 might get $10, ad set 2 might get $20, ad set 3 might get $25, ad set 4 might get $15, and ad set 5 might get $30, for example. So what the CBO campaign does, it decides where to push and allocate the budget that you've decided on the campaign level and spread it across your ad sets, your audiences, and your ads to see where can it get the maximum result for your money from. Facebook introduced CBOs a few years ago to eliminate the decision factor for us media buyers to make sure that the ads perform better with the help of the Facebook machine learning algorithm. So Facebook, with the more money you spend and the more data you acquire, the CBOs will start performing better and better through time. And CBOs have really improved drastically since they've been initially introduced. And Facebook has been saying that they're going to make this mandatory for quite some time now, for a few years actually, but eventually maybe it's going to happen, maybe not, but it is good to be informed what the CBO can actually do for your instance. The more seasoned your pixel and ad account is, the more profitable your CBOs will become over time. Okay, so now that we've covered that, what are ABOs then? ABOs basically stand for ad set level budget optimization. So for this instance, we actually choose the budget that we want to spend towards the ad sets actually. So here we decide how much we want to spend on each particular ad set. So for example, if we take the $100 budget again, and we have another 5 ad sets, we would distribute these $100 evenly across each 5 ad sets and give them each $20. So this way we give each of the ad sets a fair shot. And this is why I personally prefer testing with ABO instead of CBO, as this way I can spend and allocate the budget evenly across each individual interest, each individual ad set, and measure the performance a lot more accurately. But this is just my personal preference. There really isn't any right or wrong Facebook testing strategy. This is just my personal preference and what I've been able to see the best results with. Both CBOs and ABOs work 100%. You just have to find out what works better for you, refine it, and make sure it gives you the best possible performance. I still am actively testing both, and in some cases I see better performance with ABOs, sometimes I see better with CBOs. But in this video, we're going to be talking more about the ABO testing strategy. So here's my structure. In order to create your ads, you have to click on create. And almost always we want to be optimizing for conversions, as already mentioned. However you decide to name your campaign is completely up to you. Make sure it just makes sense when you're actually looking at your data. For this, we're just going to call it testing. And here you would click it on or off, whether it's a CBO or not. And here you could change your daily budget, but we're going to leave this off. And ad set level name applies to the same concept. I usually just name it after the interest that I'm actually testing. So for example, just for the video's sake, we're going to go with interest 1. The first thing that we want to choose and set up on the actual ad set level is the conversion event. Now, you could set up for view content, add to cart, initiate checkout, but we're pretty much always going to go with purchase. This way, Facebook automatically starts searching for potential customers for us. Here you could set up a few additional things such as cost control. That is something that we're not going to be touching when actually setting up the testing campaign. You could also change up the conversion window, but I personally prefer going with 7 days click or 1 day view. This is something you're probably going to have to experiment with and see what works best for your particular product or your particular store. Dynamic creative and offer is something that I also do not touch, and this is where we get to the actual audience section. This is where we choose who we want to present our ads to. Up top, you could choose a custom audience that maybe you have previously created. This is when we're actually going to get towards retargeting and lookalike audiences, but more on that further on in the video. So we want to start off by choosing the different locations. In my case, I prefer going with the top 4/top 5 countries. Other people could also use the e-packet countries. Just to name a few would be the Scandinavian countries, so Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark, maybe also Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Ireland, Singapore. You could test around and experiment with these or just use the e-packet list, but my personal preference, I like using the top 4/top 5 countries, which are the United States, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. It's also going to be important to click on this drop-down menu and choose people living in this location. So that way we do not target people that are traveling there or visiting there at the current time, but actually live there right now. You could also change up the age and also genders, but usually I leave them on default unless it's already clear that, for instance, let's say we have some kind of pregnancy product that it would only be appealing towards women and not men, or vice versa. Same thing also applies to ages. We really want to give Facebook as much opportunities as possible to find and pickpocket the right audiences for us. And for testing, that's usually going to be something that I prefer. Just give Facebook as many different possibilities and options as possible. We don't really want to limit Facebook's learning possibilities right off the bat. So if your product is mainly towards younger or the older demographic, you can change it up slightly. But for instance, in most cases, you could just leave it on default 18 to 65 plus. So if you click on edit for detailed targeting, this is where you add a different interest that you want to test or exclude some. Usually I turn off detailed targeting expansion. I only turn this on when we're actually scaling, because this way Facebook can only choose from these particular audiences, not add additional ones that they might think that could relate to this particular audience. So we're going to switch that off, and we're going to choose a specific interest that relates to our particular product. Now it's going to be important to only choose one single interest and not to stack them, because this way, if the ad set does perform super well and you have 2 or 3 or 4 different interests that you have stacked, it's going to be hard to find out and pickpocket which of these interests actually gave you the good performance. And that's something that we just want to avoid. Therefore, we want to only choose one particular interest. And ideally, the audience should be 3 million plus in size so that we have better further scaling possibilities. Only then I usually advise to stack interest if your audience size is too small, especially if you've chosen a very, very niche down product and you're only appealing to possibly a single type of demographic, let's say only to the German speaking market. Now, what interest should you go with? This is a question that I get actually quite often, especially in the DMs and the comment section. And to answer this once and for all, hopefully, is it's very hard to say, I don't know, you don't know, and this is just a matter of testing. You could have an estimation somewhat right off the bat. Let's say for this particular massage type of product, you could try out massage and think, okay, people that are interested in massaging could be interested in this type of product. But ultimately, you can only find this out while actually testing. So what I do is I choose bigger, broader interests to give Facebook the chance to find the audience for me. And if it works well, I continue scaling this particular interest where I find out similar interest using the suggestions tab. To answer this question, hopefully, there's really no way of knowing which type of interest can work for you. It's only a matter of testing, because you might think this interest would perform best, but it turns out that some kind of interest that doesn't even relate directly to the product might perform best and yield the best ROAS for you. So for example, we're going to go with massaging, something that I just mentioned, and we're going to go with massage. What I also like doing is excluding different audiences. In this case, we're going to go with dropshipping and also AliExpress. So this basically excludes people that are interested in dropshipping and AliExpress from our actual targeting. And hopefully we can hide our ads a little bit longer from different dropshippers or people that would be interested in selling this product as well. It's not going to last forever, but it's at least worth a shot. And here you can also change up different languages that you want to present these to. But since our ads are going to be in English and our main markets are going to be English, we're fine with leaving this on all languages. Next up, you got placements. Here you actually decide where you want to show your ads on. Now, a common method that a lot of people like using is, let's say, only the Instagram and Facebook feed. But I personally prefer going with automatic placements. This way, you give Facebook the chance to find the audience for you. And oftentimes, I've seen a lot better performance through choosing automatic placements. And I also recommend you to go with automatic placements because, again, before testing, you do not know which type of placement where your ad will perform best. You might think Facebook feed might perform best for you and don't even try Instagram, but it turns out that Instagram is a lot better and suitable for your actual product, but you never gave it a shot since you went with manual placements. And this is something that we want to avoid, therefore automatic placements. So we're going to leave that untouched. And the last section for the ad set level is the budget and schedule. Here's where you decide how much you want to spend on this individual ad set if you've chosen the ABO option. How much you decide to spend per day, whether it's $5, $10, $20, $30, $50, $100, is completely up to you and also your budget. Now, usually when you're looking at more higher ticket products, so let's say $80 plus that you're trying to sell, it's more advised to go with higher daily budgets, so at least $10, maybe even $20, the more the better usually. But if you have a cheaper product, let's say under $40, you can get away easily with $5 a day budgets, but anything below $5 a day per ad set doesn't really make sense in my opinion. And you really want to find out how much you can spend per day, because when we're testing, we ideally want to test at least 7 to 10 different ad sets with each 7 to 10 different interests. And if you can't afford spending $70 per day, so $10 on each 7 different interests, I recommend going with $5 per day. Therefore, you would only spend $35 instead of $70 per day. So ultimately, it depends on your financial situation and also your budget. And if you can't even spend $35 to $40 per day, I don't recommend you get into Facebook ads at all. Try out different methods. Check out a few different videos that I talked about on my personal channel, how I would approach a much smaller budget. The amount you spend per day on your Facebook ads on the ad set level ultimately decides and impacts how quickly you're going to see results and how quickly you're going to get this valuable data. So obviously, if you spend $5 per day in comparison to $10 per day, you're going to get the result twice as quickly with $10 per day. So I personally prefer going with $10 or $20 per day, but $5 per day also works. So for this video, we're going to go with $10 per day. And that's pretty much it on the ad set level. Here you can also see the potential reach of your audience, which in our case, with the options that we chosen, is going to be 33 million, which is a fairly decent size in my opinion. So we click on continue, and now we're on the actual ad level. So here we're just going to name the ad accordingly. Make sure, again, just that it's easy for you to remember. You also choose the Facebook page. This is just a site from a different video that I ran in the past. Make sure the Facebook page and Instagram account that you want to actually run this actual product is synced correctly. Here you choose what type of creative you actually want to run, whether it's a carousel ad, ad, a video ad, an image ad, or a collection ad. For this, we're gonna go with single image or video ad, and you can add media through clicking on this, add image or add video. Make sure you choose the fitting creative right here. This should just act as a filler product in our instance. This is actually just a product from a 72-hour challenge that I did on my channel. On the right, you'll see a preview of how your ad is gonna look like, and these are all the different aspects that you can change. You can also edit the placement and change it accordingly so that it fits each individual placement. So Facebook feed, Facebook stories, IG stories, as they do have different sizing options. So you want to make sure that you give each individual platform the optimal experience. Under primary text, you choose the actual ad copy. So what do you want to give across in your actual message? We want to make sure that the ad copy is informative, but also quite intriguing, so that increases the chances of the actual consumer clicking on our ad and directing them to our website. The ad copy is something very, very important and impacts the actual click-through rate. So the chances or the likelihood of someone actually clicking on your ad and therefore getting onto your site is impacted heavily by what we write in the primary text, also known as ad copy. And therefore, this is something that we want to constantly be testing and experimenting and hopefully improving upon. So this is just going to be as a filler. We're just going to go with glowing trees, since that was the domain name for the actual site that we created for this particular product. You can also add an additional headline and also a description. I've experimented with both with and without, and these two aspects aren't the biggest impactors on the actual performance of your ads. The main biggest criteria and the biggest game changers within the ad performance are going to be number one, your actual creative. So what type of video you have, the whole format of the video, what type of images you have, the actual carousel ads, etc. So these are going to be mainly your main factors. Beyond that, also the scroll stopper of your actual video ad. So the first 3 to 5 seconds of your video. That's really the initial part where you want to convince your consumer, is it worth continue watching this video, or do I continue scrolling and browsing? So you really want to make sure that the first 3 to 5 seconds are as intriguing and as interesting for them to continue watching and hopefully click on our ads. So that is probably one of the biggest factors you want to constantly keep testing, and also, as already mentioned, the ad copy. Those three are the biggest impactful parts of your actual ad creative performance. So those three things you should constantly be testing, whether it's in the actual testing phase or in a separate creative testing campaign. For this video, we're going to be using this within all one testing campaign. So after this particular ad set setup is done, we're going to be duplicating this particular ad 2 additional times, or 3 times how many ad creatives you have, and we're going to be running these additionally. So just for the sake of this video, I'm going to leave headline and description out. Under website URL, you always want to go with your landing page / product page and never your home page, because we obviously want to give the consumer as little steps as possible in between from them seeing the ad, clicking on the ad, and actually making a purchase, not sending them to the home page and hoping that they'll find our product page and hoping that they will actually make a purchase. Always direct them to the product page. So for the website URL, we're going to add the product page right here. And if your product page link is quite ugly, you can just change up the display link by adding the actual homepage link. And call to action. This is also something that can impact your performance, but I personally almost always go shop now, and I suggest you do as well. Okay, so we're all set up with the first ad set, and we're gonna confirm and publish this. And once you've published your very first ad and ad set, what we want to do, since we want to test multiple creatives at once, is we just practically click on duplicate and duplicate it so and so many times as you have different creatives. If you only have one video or one image, you can simply test out a different ad copies. So let's say you want to test out 2 or 3 different ad copies. I usually recommend having at least 1 or 2 additional ad creatives within each ad set. So we're just going to duplicate it twice, make sure that this is clicked and selected, and we're going to duplicate. And here you would make sure that you only change a single criteria so that you know what change actually impacted the performance. So here you could change up the actual primary text or the actual video ad or creative, but since this is just for example purposes, we're just going to leave it this way. Okay, so that's our first interest done and set up. And since I already mentioned we want to at least be testing 7 different interests, so therefore we're going to be duplicating this particular ad set that we just set up by 6 times, or how many times or how many different interests that you want to test. Obviously, the more interests that you can test, the better, but this all depends on your particular budget. And for the example purpose, we're going to go with 6 additional times, duplicate this, and then we're going to change up only one single factor, make sure that it's only one thing so that we know what change impacted the performance. And for this instance, the only thing that we're going to be changing is going to be the actual interest. And to find a different or similar interest, we can just click on the suggestions bar under massage, and for this example we could go with spas and remove massages. And for this, I would obviously change up the different ad set name so that I know which particular interest I went with this ad set, and then obviously do this as many times as you have different ad sets. So therefore, by the end, you should have 7 different unique interests that you're trying out, or depending, obviously, if you have more ad sets, more interests. For each individual ad set, one single unique different interest. Everything else stayed the same. Even the ad creatives, everything that you changed up has to stay the same. Only thing you're changing is the actual interest. And once you're done with that, we publish all them and we're live. But now the important question, how long do I run these ads and how do I know if the performance is actually good? Good question. Everyone has a different methods to how they judge their ad sets and when to kill and how long to let them run. This is my personal method, how I decide the performance of each particular ad set. Before we get into that actual aspect, in order to judge the performance properly, we want to make sure that we have a proper column setup. And this is how I usually set up my columns. If you want to do this exact same column setup, go ahead, stop the video right now and set it up correctly. But this is all the different criteria and metrics that I look at. We got budget, CPM, impressions, 3-second video plays, 75%, 95%, average play time, unique CTR link click-through rate, unique link clicks, CPC, cost per link click, unique content views, unique add to carts, unique checkouts initiated, and purchases, then cost per each individual step, the amount spent, the purchase conversion value, the purchase ROAS, so the return on ad spend, the frequency, and on ad level, you'll also be able to see the quality ranking, the engagement rate ranking, and conversion rate ranking. That just helps you determine the performance of the actual ads a little bit better. And this particular column setup helps you understand each single step of the way and really helps you out to troubleshoot the funnel to make sure, okay, where did the drop off happen and why are my ads not performing to this particular level? So there you can find out, okay, is it my product, is it my creative, or is it my landing page that isn't performing well for me, and what do I have to change to improve the performance? So if you want to use this particular column setup, all you have to do is click on columns, customize columns, and add and select all these things accordingly, and then make sure you save it as a preset, apply, and also save it well. So feel free to copy it and use it if you want. So I usually base my decisions on my break-even point. BEP stands for break-even point, and break-even point basically means this is how much money you can spend without making any profit or losing any money. And it varies from product to product. So here's how you can very, very simply calculate your break-even point. Your break-even point is calculated by taking your selling price minus your cost of goods. So that is product price, including shipping. And if we take a look at this product, just for example purposes, this cost us $8.72, the product cost, and $2.66 for shipping, which equals $11.38 in total cost of goods. And let's say we would be selling it for $34.99. So we would take the $34.99 minus $11.38, which would give us a break-even cost per purchase of $22.56. So that means we could spend up to $22.56 to get a purchase without losing or making any additional money, which is a pretty decent break-even point. So therefore, if we're spending, let's say in our case, $10 per day, we could let it run for 2.2 days or 2 to 3 days to our break-even point. So it really depends how much you're spending per day. You would have $20. You could already decide after like 1 day or 2 days. I personally always let my ads run at least 2 to 4 days, depending on the budget that you're actually spending. But even if I would be spending $20 per day, I'd let it run for 2 days because Facebook ads can have an off date. So if you would be running a $5 per day budget, then you could let it run for 4 to 5 days and then evaluate the actual performance. And I get a lot of DMs like this that they've cut their ad sets after just letting it run for $2 or $3. That's just wrong. Don't do that. Give Facebook enough time to optimize and spend and distribute the budget correctly. And so here's how you decide after letting it run to your break-even point. If you've let it run till your break-even point and you haven't gotten any add to carts or any initiate checkouts, then I turn it off immediately, as that's not going to perform well. If you have lots of add to carts and lots of initiate checkouts, the purchase intent is there, but no purchases yet, I'd let it run for maybe 1 or 2 more days, depending on your break-even point again, and to evaluate and maybe give it a little bit more of a chance. Same thing applies if you've gotten like maybe one particular purchase and you're around the break-even point, maybe slightly profitable, slightly negative. I'd give it another day or 2 to see if you get another purchase through that and it actually turns profitable. And if this ad set has a profitable return on ad spend and it has gotten a few additional purchases, then obviously we could either decide, are we going to let it run at the same budget or can we continuously scale? So basically this is just a simplified version of how you can actually troubleshoot and actually analyze your ads and the performance. There are multiple factors and criteria that play in for each individual product and the actual performance of your actual landing page, your actual creative performance. All these different things are going to be relatively tricky to judge within one video. And reading and analyzing data is also somewhat of a skill set that you acquire through practice, through running ads and actually analyzing them consistently, and you'll get the hang of it once you do a little bit more. So don't get overwhelmed. I personally actually quite enjoy the process. So the more money you spend, the more ads you run, the easier the process will become. And what is important to clarify is during this initial testing phase, we want to find out a few particular things. We want to to find out, number one, is the product actually selling? Is there demand for this particular product? Should we continue selling? Number two, what type of interests are particularly interested in this? Hopefully we get 3 or 5 different ad sets that are profitable that we can bring on to the next stage, which is going to be to scale these particular interests. And also what creatives do perform best. So therefore, this initial testing phase is also important for this particular criteria. And last but not least, this particular stage is very important to help us segment and get to the next stages, which hopefully are going to be lookalike audiences. And the more you spend per day, the quicker you'll reach these next stages, the quicker you'll be able to move on. And ideally, you want to keep on testing until you get at least 3 to 5 different interests or ad sets that are performing profitably and have gotten at least 3 to 5 different sales, so that the data is significant, so that you can take them and scale them in separate CBO campaigns through either vertical scaling or horizontal scaling. There are multiple ways you can actually scale, and we want to start off by differentiating horizontal and vertical scaling, and also if you decide to scale via ABOs or CBOs. To simplify both horizontal and vertical scaling, horizontal scaling would be, for example, to test out multiple different interests that could relate to your previous successful interests, and to basically create multiple ad sets, multiple interests, and give them additional budgets as well. So then you would have multiple ad sets, multiple campaigns with multiple different interests. On the other hand, vertical scaling would be to simply increase the budgets of your currently performing campaigns or ad sets upwards. So therefore, let's say you would go from $10 a day on your ad set to $20 or $50. So therefore, increasing this on the single actual ad set / campaign. It's going to be also important when actually scaling your ad sets or your campaign, your CBO campaign, is that you actually duplicate this campaign / ad set at the same budget or a higher budget, or that you only gradually scale it by 20 to 30% by increasing your budget this way. The reasoning behind this is currently we obviously have the learning phase. To avoid resetting the actual learning phase that we have been working so hard for, we want to only bump up the budget slightly, ideally only 20 to 30%, as this does not reset the learning phase. On the other hand, if you would double it or increase it massively, it would reset the learning phase. And it definitely might impact your current performance negatively or positively. That is something that we don't know. And ideally, we don't want to take a risk on that. And as already mentioned, if you want to scale a little bit more aggressively, then you could simply take this ad set or this campaign, let's say ad set, for example, and then you can duplicate it. Let's say you've been running it for $10 per day to $20 per day, $50 per day, or just multiple same budget ad sets. So that would be a way of scaling. So you would take interest A, for example, performed super well, has gotten consistent purchases. Let's say it has gotten 5 purchases, currently a ROAS of 3x, your break-even ROAS is 1.5, so it's super profitable. What you could do then is duplicate it 5 times, for example, at each $10 per day, and therefore you would be spending now $60 on this particular ad set. A different way to do it would be just to duplicate it once at $20 per day, or if you want to do it differently and also scale through CBOs, here's how I would do it. Now, in order to scale your interest via CBOs, you ideally want to have at least 5 well-working interests. Now, it does work with less, but if you have 5 or more, that's a lot better. And these interests should have already been proven, and they've performed consistently well throughout the last 3 to 5 days, or even the longer the better. That just means that you have statistical significance, and these weren't just fluke or random purchases. And you also have to remember, when taking these interests into a separate CBO campaign for the scaling campaign, you have to make sure that all these interests have a similar audience size, or else, let's say if one has 1 million in audience size, the other one has 20 million, the one with 20 million will get a lot more budget dedicated from the CBO campaign because it is a much bigger audience, and Facebook can reach a lot more people within that audience than in comparison for the 1 million. And that might be detrimental because, for example, maybe your 1 million audience performs a lot better than your 20 million audience. And regardless, at least at early stages, Facebook will spend a lot of money more towards that 20 million audience because it will be a lot easier to reach. So once you have these 5 different interests, you would duplicate these 5 interests into a separate scaling CBO campaign. Now, I recommend pricing it at least at $100, even better if you can price it at $200. Now, that really depends on your personal financial situation and your current budget. And remember, this budget is going to be per day. By now, you should have gotten a better understanding which of your creatives has performed best, which of them has probably the most add to cards purchases, highest CTR, lowest CPM, lowest CPC, some statistics to look out for. And therefore, I would take this particular ad creative and duplicate it at least 2 to 3 times for each individual ad set within your scaling campaign, so that you have 2 to 3 ads per each individual ad set within your scaling campaign. Now, it's going to be important to remember that CBOs do take time to readjust and optimize, and I recommend at least letting your CBOs run for 3 days without touching them. Now, what I see is quite common is that a lot of people let their CBO campaign run for 1 day, maybe get 1 sale and it's not really profitable, or it's slightly below break even, and they turn it off immediately because they're panicking. What we want to do is we want to give Facebook and the CBO campaign enough time to optimize and yield the best performance for us. CBO is a smart new campaign method method that learns with time and money spent towards it, and therefore we should give it the time and money to acquire the customers and the data that is needed to optimize correctly for us. So give them at least 3 days minimum to judge, but this is primarily based on a $100 to $200 day budget. $500,000 is going to be much different, as you can get the results a lot quicker. Now, here are some general criteria that I would look out for when actually deciding whether I should continuously scale the CBO campaign or if I should kill it. Now, these aren't going to be applicable for every single situation, but this is just for you to get a better judgment and an estimation of how this actually works. Now, if your CBO campaigns after 3 days are super profitable, so let's say you've gotten a good amount of profits already and it has a fantastic ROAS, however high it may be for you, then what you could do is you could either bump it up gradually, like 20 to 30%, or just duplicate it again at the same budget or at a much higher budget because this has performed well in the past. Now, here you wouldn't ideally want to massively bump up the budget on this particular campaign, as you wouldn't want to reset the learning phase as previously mentioned. So either bump it up gradually or duplicate. Now, if it's slightly profitable, so maybe you've earned a few dollars here and there and you are above your break-even ROAS and it's been fairly decent for you, but it could be better, what you can do here is just bump it up slightly, 20 to 30%. So let's say you have $100, you could let it run for 125, 120, 130, around that region, so that you give it a little bit more budget, but not too much, so that it can readjust. And then you can do the same thing after 3 days again. If the performance is still consistent, it might even be better. Now, if your CBO campaign thus far is break even or barely profitable, so it's right around the break even point, what you can do here is let it run for another 1, 2, 3 days and then rejudge the performance. Then you can see, okay, has it performed worse? Has it performed better? And then you can apply the following criteria that I just mentioned. And remember, if it's only around the break even point, that's still not terrible, as we are building up valuable data for later on for lookalike audiences, custom audiences that are going to be very useful for us. Now, if it's slightly negative, for example, so like you're a few dollars in the loss, maybe 20, 30, 40, whatever, it's still doable. What I would recommend here is instead of scaling it by 20% or 30%, to decrease the budget by 20 to 30% and see if that at least somewhat adjust your campaign performance and it starts performing better, and then reevaluate after a 3-day period again. Now, if your CBO campaign after 3 days has performed terribly or is very negative, then you're doing something wrong here, and you would practically scrap the CBO campaign and go back to the previous stages. So retesting your creatives and also your interests to see what might have gone wrong, and then retest it at a later stage as well, or give ABOs a try if those are still working for you, to practically increase the budget on your ad set level budget. So therefore you can increase your ABO budget per day and see if that works better for you, because with some accounts, some products, ABO will work better than CBO. It really varies, and this is something that you have to test out for your personal ad account and your personal store. Both options definitely work, and it's going to be important to continuously test your ad creatives and continuously test different interests so that you can set up new scaling campaigns, because it's going to be a lot more consistent if you have multiple $100 CBOs than having a few bigger scale CBOs, at least from my personal experience in the early stages. Now, once you've reached the stage, you're slowly scaling your single interest, have a few CBO campaigns running, this is where you should start retargeting. Now, retargeting campaigns are often going to be your most profitable campaigns out there, as these customers are already well familiar with your business and have interacted with it in some shape or form, whether it was visiting your site, viewing your ad, or actually adding the product to your cart. And if set up correctly, these campaigns can yield insane ROAS. These are probably the ones that you see screenshots of, like 16 ROAS, 17, 12, whatever. So big numbers and highly profitable campaigns and ad sets can be achieved right here. So what we want to do with these retargeting campaigns is we want to take the people that interacted with our site and recapture them and hopefully turn them into a purchase, or at least bring them further within our funnel. Now, for each individual audience, you want to present them a different offer, whether it's the actual ad creative or the ad copy. You want to make sure that this is tailored to this specific demographic, this specific audience. And there are a few custom audiences for these retargeting campaigns that I highly recommend that you set up. Now, those would be Facebook and Instagram engagement, 75% video views, 95% video views, view content, top time spent 25% on site. Then you got add to carts in the last 14 days. Then you got view content in the last 14 days. Last but not least, initiate checkout within the last 14 days. And I also highly recommend that you exclude people that have purchased from your site from all of these different retargeting campaigns, because you don't want to show them a retargeting campaign where it says forgot something, even though they actually initiated a purchase and already bought for you. That just seems a little bit weird. And as I already mentioned, each of them should have a fitting ad copy and a fitting creative, guiding them through every single step of the way. Now, at this stage, it doesn't necessarily have to be a video creative. It could be something simple like a carousel, an image ad, could be a testimonial ad, lots of different ways that you can really simplify your creatives, but make sure you do tailor them to the fitting step of each funnel. And for the hotter audiences, such as initiate checkout or add to cart, you can even add an additional discount so maybe like 10, 20%, whatever works with your profit margins, and those usually tend to perform quite well. For 75% video viewers, 95% video viewers, I usually don't offer a discount, but when they're further down the funnel, so maybe they've already added to the cart or initiated checkout, then it definitely makes sense. And I usually have 3 to 5 different ad creatives for each individual retargeting audience. Now you can either set these up via CBOs or ABOs, something to test out for yourself. Again, I personally prefer setting this up via ABOs. And one more thing, it's also very important that you don't spend more than 10 to 20% of your current daily ad spend on your retargeting campaigns so that you don't fatigue these audiences all too quickly. So that means, for example, if you're spending $200 per day on ads, therefore you shouldn't spend more than $20 to $40 on a daily basis on this particular audience, or at least your retargeting campaigns in a whole. At this stage, from my personal experience, you should have already reached profitability and you shouldn't really be losing money anymore. Now, on to the next stage, we've covered how to actually start testing, scaling your single interest, and retargeting. Now onto one of my favorites, lookalike audiences. Now, to simplify and explain lookalike audiences are custom audiences. And for example, let's say you've registered 500 add to carts on your Facebook pixel, so 500 people, unique people, have added your product to your cart. What you can do now is create a custom audience, a lookalike audience. Now, once we start running these lookalike audiences, Facebook will try and find people that are most similar to perform a similar action as these people have previously done. So for each individual criteria, like let's say 75% video viewers, Facebook will try and find people that are most likely to perform this specific action. So watch the video at 75%. Hopefully that makes sense. As with the more data that you've managed to acquire and give your Facebook pixel, the more accurate and the better your lookalike audiences should normally perform, especially for like higher tier type of lookalike audiences, such as add to carts, purchases, and also initiate checkouts. Those definitely need a lot more data than only 100 events triggered. But for example, for lower tier type lookalike audiences, now I don't want to say lower tier, higher tier because they perform poorly, for example, the lower tier, because that's simply not true. It's just how difficult and how much you have to spend to acquire these type of lookalike audiences for your actual campaign. Personally, I do highly recommend you should at least gather 2,000 plus events for the following audiences. So if you want to create lookalike audiences for 50% video viewers, so people that have watched your video at least 50%, so half of it, 75% video viewers, 95% video viewers, people that have engaged with your Facebook or IG account, and also view content. Those are 100% going to be the audiences that you collect data the quickest, especially if you have a great creative or relatively low CPMs. And it really depends on how much you're spending. You could definitely unlock the first lookalike audiences within a few days. Now, for the other lookalike audiences that I've already mentioned, add to cart, initiate checkout, and purchases, at least have 500 plus events registered. Now, for purchases, you can try them out at, let's say, 100, 200 events triggered, but I recommend waiting until 500. Give it a try if you want earlier, see how they perform. If not, then just re-pick them up at a later stage. Now, how do you segment your LLAs? Well, there are different ways to do that. I personally prefer setting up my LLAs this way: 0 to 1%, 0 to 3%, 0 to 5%, 0 to 7%, 0 to 10%. But this is also something that I try out and split test. It could be also like 0 to 1%, 1 to 3%, 3 to 5%, 5 to 7%, 7 to 10%. You will see different results, and this is also something worth testing. Now, you probably already noticed by now that Facebook is a lot about testing, and that pretty much summarizes Facebook ads for you. Now, there are many ways to segment and set up your lookalike audiences, but that's how I personally prefer starting off. If the performance is mixed, I give other segmentations a try. Now, whether you set up your lookalike audiences via CBOs or ABOs, it's ultimately up to you, and something also that I like testing out and experimenting with. Personally, I like going with ABOs. So for example, let's say we take 50% video viewers, and then we'll give them $20 per day to spend. So now we got 5 lookalike audiences. Now you could also do 10. So 0 to 1, 0 to 2, 0 to 3, etc. if you'd like to. That just gives you more audiences to test, and is definitely worth testing out as well. But let's say we take the 5 audiences, 0 to 1, 0 to 3, 0 to 5, 0 to 7, 0 to 10. What I would do is I would give them each either $10 or $20 per day on an ad set level budget. And then again, I'd let them run for 3 days usually, or around my break-even point, and then evaluate their performance. If let's say all of them work well, I could group them and take them in a separate CBO campaign, similar to previously discussed interest scale. Or for example, what also works quite well is you could already take this group of 5 different audiences or 5 different lookalike audiences and put them in a CBO right off the bat. So there you could put it at $100 or $200, again, depending on your personal budget, and then let it run for at least 3 days before evaluating and taking a look at the previously discussed scaling and cutting method or CBO campaigns or interest scale. Now, again, this is just going to be a matter of testing. Sometimes CBOs work better, sometimes ABOs work better, and ultimately it's a matter of testing and preference. And there's also going to be no guarantee that, let's say, once you've unlocked your purchase lookalike audiences, that those are going to be exceptionally better than 75% video video viewers. Again, something to test. No guarantee, Facebook is all about testing. Also, do retry lookalike audiences if they've not worked for you in the past. So let's say you've tried add to carts, but then you've spent an additional 1K on advertising. Your lookalike audiences consistently update, consistently evolve as you start spending money, get more data, they're more reliable, and definitely try experimenting and trying them out every now and then, especially if they performed once well, stop performing, give them another try, or vice versa. They never performed well. You never know, because they might perform super well. So also keep on testing them. After you spent a significant amount, give them another shot. And usually looking at lookalike audiences versus cold interest, lookalike audiences perform a lot better and are usually a lot more consistent and are going to be easier to scale quicker and test more efficiently while getting still fairly decent results. So the sooner you can get to lookalike audiences, the better for you. Now at this stage, you should have tons of different profitable ad sets, audiences, and already a few CBO campaigns running for you successfully, whether they're multiple $100 CBOs or a few 200 or a few big ones with $1,000 or $500. At this stage, you're doing quite well. You're seeing a few $1,000s per day in sales, which is nice. Hopefully some profits as well. At this stage, you are probably profitable. And next up is a step that I actually learned from Verum Ecom from one of his videos. It is the endgame phase, endgame strategy, I think he called it, and it is super interesting. What you do here is once you've gathered enough data, you spend enough money, you have enough purchases, what you can do here is you can practically set up Facebook ads on autopilot so that they find profitable audiences for you pretty much automatically. And these are usually super good since your Facebook pixel and Facebook ad account is seasoned enough. But if you want a more in-depth strategy, I recommend checking out Verum Ecom's video because it is something that I learned from him. It wouldn't be right to take his credit away. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up this Facebook ads video / tutorial. I tried to make this video as uncomplicated and beginner friendly as possible. Hopefully I succeeded with this. Let me know if you have any questions down below. And definitely you could go so much more in depth in Facebook ads, and it's really hard to cram as much knowledge and try not to overwhelm the viewers with all different statistics, all different metrics, all different things that are important for Facebook ads within a video that is shorter than 60 minutes within one Facebook video. And I probably missed an important aspect here and there, and therefore I'm sorry for that. I gave it my best, but sometimes I also can be quite forgetful. Now hopefully this video was still very helpful for you, especially some of you beginners out there that have no clue of how to start testing on Facebook and are just overwhelmed by Facebook ads in general. Hopefully this video managed to inform you a little bit better and you learned a thing or two. So if you enjoyed this video or learned something new within it, I'd really appreciate it if you could like, comment, or subscribe, or all three. Obviously very much appreciate it. If you have any questions for any individual step, feel free to ask in the comment section below. Hit me up on Instagram or also join the private Facebook group where you can pretty much ask anyone, a very knowledgeable group of individuals that are trying to help each other crush this Q4. And I want to end off this video with one final note towards Facebook ads. Ultimately, your testing / scaling / ad buying strategy isn't your most important indicator or factor for your success on Facebook ads. As if you somewhat understand Facebook ads and you have a good product and a good ad creative, you'll see success with Facebook ads because there are hundreds, if not thousands, of different scaling, testing strategies that work out there on YouTube, different gurus recommending them. These are just from my personal experience, what I've seen results with, and that I think could help you out for sure. It's going to be most important that you find a strategy that works for you, adopt it, and improve it along the way, as this isn't a one-size-fits-all type of strategy. It will work with some products, it will work with some cases, might not work with some things. Facebook ads aren't something that you set up once and it starts instantly performing well. Facebook ads involves constant testing, whether it's the creatives, the audiences, your ad buying strategy, your testing strategy, your scaling strategy, and Facebook ads are consistently and always evolving and always changing, and so should you. You should definitely be adapting, as does Facebook. And to conclude this video, your most important factors for your success on Facebook are going to be your product and also your ad creative. If those are bad, it doesn't matter if your ad buying strategy is exceptional and is fantastic if your product and your ads suck. So thank you guys for watching this video. Hopefully you guys learned something new. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and hopefully we can hit the 10K finally. And yeah, thank you guys for watching this one. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.